Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining another episode of the Rays Rewind podcast. The Rays got swept by the lowly Chicago White Sox this weekend. I am here to talk about it and to get the frustrations of Rays fans out there. So let's talk about it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast.
Rays Rewind with Bell, Bushman, and Drew.
Jansen. That is into center field. Here comes Kiermaier. Phillips has tied the game. Arozarena coming around. Throw home. Now he stumbles. But the ball gets away. Tampa Bay wins it. Brett Phillips, game 4 hero.
The sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Hey, everybody. This is Drew with the Rays Rewind podcast. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We are doing things a little different today, given the nature of what happened this weekend with the Rays being swept by the White Sox. Normally, we're coming at you with a new episode in the middle of the week, either maybe a Wednesday morning or Thursday morning when it goes out. But we wanted to go ahead and discuss kind of the atrocity that was this past series against the White Sox. I am by myself tonight, going solo. Evan, my typical co-host, he is out of the country enjoying some vacation time with his wife. And so I am very jealous that he did not have to watch any of this Rays series this weekend. Instead, he's enjoying Spain. So it is just me tonight. So we'll just kind of dive right in to this last weekend. I managed to watch every inning of all 3 games, and it was probably some of the worst baseball I think collectively I've seen from the Rays in quite some time. I think big picture, the Rays, simply put, are going to be the laughing stock of Major League Baseball for the next 24 to 48 hours. You're talking about a White Sox team coming into the series that was 3-22, the worst team in baseball by almost every important statistic. They had the worst offense in baseball. They had the worst pitching in baseball, the highest pitchers ERA in baseball. They weren't scoring any runs at all. They are actually on a 7-game losing streak coming into this series with no off day. The Rays, as we know, have been up and down. They've been around 500 team pretty much all season. Coming into this series, they got the win against the Tigers and salvaged a win in that series. Got the day off after 13 games in 13 days, and got the day off Thursday coming into a weekend series against the White Sox. And, the weather wasn't the kindest. It was not necessarily great baseball weather. It was, of course, in typical Chicago fashion, the wind whipping around quite a bit and having a definite impact on some of the outcomes of certain plays. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But, for all intents and purposes, this weekend was an absolute disaster. Just a disastrous outcome for this team. For a team that has been 500, that we've talked about on this podcast. Obviously, they're not 100%. They're missing, a number of key guys. Due to injury. They're missing Wander Franco due to legal issues. They are missing some of their best offensive players in Yandy and Randy Arozarena in terms of just not performing at the plate. Yandy starting to look a little better. I'm not ready to come around and say that he's got things figured out, but he's starting to at least have some drive the ball a little bit more. And I think that was evidenced on Friday. He started the Friday night game off with a really hard double in the gap. I believe was his hardest hit ball all season. And there was to the opposite field, which is, just classic Yandy Diaz, especially when he's going well. So he's showing some signs of life. But you're talking about a team offensively that's missing a lot of pieces to the lineup, and then the pitching has been the bullpen has been atrocious for the most part. Now we're adding in some injury issues with Colin Poche, Pete Fairbanks over the last handful of days being added to the injured list. No real firm timetable on when they're coming back. No, the nerve issue with Pete isn't. It doesn't seem overly serious, but at the same time, it feels like just something that doesn't really feel like has a firm timetable to it. So, who knows exactly when he's going to come back? Colin Poche, back tightness, who knows with him? But the bullpen's been just awful. I mean, statistically, one of, if not the worst bullpen in the majors for much of the season. And then the starting pitching's been good, but coming into this series, they've had some more consistency. Pepio's looked real good. Savale got kind of roughed up a little bit at Yankee Stadium, but otherwise he's been pretty solid. Eflin was dealing against the Yankees. Littell, doing what he does, giving up a couple runs. It seems like a couple runs a game, but limiting major damage. And then Tyler Alexander actually has been a really nice surprise over the last couple weeks with his strong start against the Yankees and also against the Tigers. Putting the team in position to win. So this is a team that, when you look at the schedule and playing in the division that they do in the AL East with, pretty much everybody getting off to a really good start. I mean, the Blue Jays have kind of come back down. They were actually, I believe, tied with the Rays record-wise. I believe they won today, so I believe they're actually a game ahead of the Rays now. But, the Blue Jays have been kind of disappointing to start the season. But they were playing the Dodgers this weekend too, so it's just one of those things where, you're not that's a tough series for them to win, I think, from the jump. So the fact that they lost 2 of 3 wasn't the most concerning, but the Red Sox, they're dealing with a number of injuries. Trevor Story's out, Tristan Casas is out. They've lost some of their expected starting pitching rotation for the year, and also a guy like Garrett Whitlock who's out. He was really strong to start the year. He's out right now. They're still, they've had a bit of a blip, a rough week or so, not too long ago, but they're still 3 games over 500, about to be 3 games over 500 after tonight's game if they hold on against the Cubs. And then, of course, the Yankees, who we just saw last weekend, and then the Orioles, just kind of humming along. They are definitely the class. Those two are definitely the class of the division right now. So in this division, it is essential that you win the games you need to win outside of the division. So we talk all the time about how the AL East is so tough, top to bottom, especially over the last couple of years. And, it's just a division that's going to beat each other up. It's going to be really hard for one team in the division to really dominate the rest of the division because the talent just top to bottom is so solid. So, making up the difference elsewhere and getting those wins elsewhere is so paramount. It's for a team like the Rays, especially now that they've kind of dug themselves into a little bit of a hole. They're 4 games back going into this series, and you look at the schedule and you have the 3-22 White Sox coming in, 7-game losing streak, league's worst offense, league's worst pitching, with a couple guys going in Chris Flexen and Jonathan Cannon Friday and Saturday night, who have been pretty bad to start the year. I mean, the numbers looked pretty bad. They're both righties, although Flexen seemed to be a reverse splits guy. But generally, you got some of your hottest hitters in the lineup with Palacios and Wortvet. So your lineup's in a decent shape. And this is a series, I think, myself for sure, and every other Rays fan that I know was expecting at least 2 wins, if not a sweep. And for a team that was 500 coming into this series, getting three sweep against the lowly White Sox, which wasn't that far fetched. I mean, of an idea. I get it's baseball and anything can happen, and that's why you play the game. And we hear all the sayings. That's it's still a major league ball club over there. They're 3-22, but those are still major league players. If you don't come ready to play, anything can happen, and I get it. But when you're going into a series against the 3-22 White Sox with your top three pitchers, I you could debate Pepio over Littell. At this point, Pepio has just been really strong the last few starts. His strikeouts have been up. He's kind of given up, been prone to a little bit of the long ball. But Littell's been solid. Like, are easily your top two pitchers, and then arguably your third best, right? Going against the league's worst team by a good margin. And really, you would actually have a hard time if you didn't know the records of the teams going into this series. You would, I firmly believe that you would think the Rays were the 3-22 team, and the White Sox were the team that was 500, because the Rays just fell flat. And I think the inconsistencies that we've seen all season, where it seems like every single night there is one area of the team that fails to show up, right? And I get a team can't be perfect. All areas of a team can't show up every single night, and I'm not expecting that. But when every single night it's either the starting pitching gives up a handful of runs, and then on top of that, usually the offense doesn't show up. That's been the culprit. The offense and the bullpen have been the main culprits this season. We get great pitching. Well, it's too bad. The Rays are scratching across a run or two. That's it. You got to be perfect. The margin of error is so slim. Or the Rays, hey, look at them. We got a couple big hits, maybe a home run or two. Well, sorry, Chris Davinsky's coming in, and the bullpen's giving up now, 6 runs to Colorado in the bottom of the ninth. Something like that. Like, there's just always something. And this weekend was no different. I mean, I think, and the guys know it. I mean, you listen to the interviews, you read the beat Mark Hopkins reports after a game, you see the quotes. I mean, it's not like the guys don't know that, they're being accountable, I feel like, for their poor play, especially the pitching. But like, just seeing Zach Eflin give up, let's see, he came in and against the White Sox gave up 4 earned runs, I believe 5, 9 hits. He gave up a just mammoth home run to Martin Maldonado, who I think maybe had 1 or 2 more hits on the season than I did. Just so disappointing to see our best pitcher not be able to come into a situation like that and keep runs off the board, to get tagged by a guy like Martin Maldonado for a big time home run. For just the fielding as well. Like, you talk about the Friday night game, fielding wise, and we've seen this creep up this past week with some errors from Caballero and now Curtis Mead. I mean, he looks so uncomfortable in the field. It's hard to watch at times. I mean, the throwing motion's awkward. He is, making routine plays look really difficult. Like, you kind of hold your breath when the ball's hit to him, because you just don't know when there's any extra effort that has to be made. You just kind of get a little bit nervous. Like, I don't know if he's going to be able to make this play. I mean, you look at the play against the Yankees Friday night, the Friday night game against the Yankees in the Yankee Stadium. The pitching was humming along, and Davinsky actually came out pretty strong early, and he gets a ground ball to second base that frankly, it wasn't like right at Curtis Mead, but he's got to slide over and get behind the ball. Instead, he gets lazy and tries to grab the ball from the side on the ground, and the ball, of course, skips over his glove for an error, and then 5 runs are on the board within a matter of a few batters, thanks to Juan Soto and a few other players. And unfortunately, again on Friday, excuse me, Curtis Mead makes has a routine play, or it was literally a routine a grounder to second, routine throw, and just botches the throw. And with how things are going for the Rays this year, it seems like that run absolutely comes back to bite them. You know, whereas on the flip side, you see the Rays against the Tigers earlier this week. They get gifted 2 errors back to back to start the game and can do 0 things with it. They don't get the run. They actually, in fact, don't even move the runners over. They strike out, and pop up in that game. So, but of course, on the Rays side, in the fielding, when there's a mistake, it just seems like this year so far, it's just coming back to bite them. So frankly, the fielding, they got to tighten it up, because obviously the Rays can't afford to make these mistakes, because they're getting hurt. They're getting hurt by them every single time. You know, Mead makes that throwing error. Eflin walks next 2 guys, which we know Eflin's control is usually just first rate. So for him to walk 2 guys in a row, very uncharacteristic, and then sacrifice fly, 1-0 game, right? I believe that Mead made another error in the Saturday night game as well, botched another ground ball, and then just airmailed a throw to first, and trying to rush it over there. And thankfully it didn't go into the dugout, or else that run would have gone over to second base. But um, just generally poor play across the board from a number of different facets. Savale, hoping Saturday, okay, Eflin can't get the job done Friday, whatever. It's Apple TV. Weird things happen on Apple TV for the Rays. Savale's been pretty solid. He's going to come in. We'll shut this thing down, get the win on Saturday. And unfortunately, Savale was actually worse. He gave up 6 runs. And just could not get out of the game in any sort of clean way. Let's look at, so the Rays jump out to a 3-0 lead. Palacios, who's been just a godsend for this team so far this year, really one of the only few guys that Rays fans, I think, can have some pride in this season. Just showing up every day, I feel like, with a lot of energy. He's on the local radio shows. He's, from what I hear, he's been on, social media, posting about Tampa, posting about the Rays, really great at interacting with the fans. Like, this guy's just come in and embrace being on the Tampa Bay Rays. And he's backed it up with his play too. He's been awesome. He's been arguably their best player offensively, maybe outside of Rosario. So he gets us out to a 3-0 lead. Well, then Savale, you think, okay, settling in, bottom of the 4th. This is our time. Yeah, we're shut. We finally got a little breathing room. Finally got a lead in this series. And what happens? He singles to left. Jimenez singles to left. Infield single to shortstop. And Benintendi, who I believe had not had a single home run all year, hits a ball over the fence in center field to tie it up 3-0, like that. Literally, like in 5 pitches, the game was tied. So it felt like anytime the Rays had any sort of momentum, any sort of breathing room, they just let the White Sox right back in these games. And for a team as bad as the White Sox, and a team as supposedly as good as the Rays are supposed to be, the Saturday game, I think was easily the most entertaining and most positive game of the season of the series. Austin Shenton, I think, really kind of broke out there a little bit. He started looking a little bit more like the player we saw in Durham last year. I believe had like 20 something doubles and just was really able to kind of hit the ball with some power, hit the ball with some authority, and extra base hits, home runs. And got a wind aided home run to left field yesterday. I don't think there's any doubt that the wind helped him there. But gets his first career home run and gets a double as well. Like he showed some life in the offense. And so there was, that was great to see. Palacios, as I mentioned, getting the home run as well and having a really great day. Ben Rortvedt, again, another person, honestly, a godsend for this team. For them to get him just a day or two before the season. And he's just been clutch. I mean, he's one of the few guys that's coming up right now that with runners in scoring position, I trust to actually have a productive at bat. Whether it's moving the runners over or getting a hit, he just always seems to make contact and put the ball in play. I have no numbers at this point right now to back that up with anything, but anecdotally, with me watching literally pretty much every game of this season, he just feels like one of those guys right now that I have the most confidence in, one of the most confidence in to come through when we need him. He had the home run taken back. That was kind of funky. I know Cash got onto him for not hustling out of the box. It's kind of a weird play overall. I guess you can't argue with the fact that he should have been running. So to only get awarded first base after the review was pretty tough and came back to bite him because they did not score that inning. But again, just tough, just a tough result because you have all these great things happening and you get runners on base, you get bases loaded and can't do anything with it. I believe, let me see real fast. So today and Sunday's game, I know the offense was a little bit more, had disappeared a little bit more today. They left 5 on base today. Friday, they left 12 on base. And then I think Saturday was possibly even worse. 11. Okay, so quick math, that's 28. They left 28 men on base this season, or this series. They were 5 of 16 with runners in scoring position. And I remember seeing a stat. I believe at one point in the game, they were 5 of 10. So then you're talking about the last 6 at bats with runners in scoring position in a close game. They came through 0 times. Friday night, they were 2 of 13 with runners in scoring position. Paredes 0 for 3. Arozarena 0 for 2. Arozarena on Saturday was 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position. And then today they were 0 for 6. So just there, and that's the offense right there. I mean, that is quintessential Rays offense in 2024. It's a bunch of singles. I believe they actually are second or third in the majors in terms of the percentage of their hits being singles. I believe I saw the stat over the weekend. It was like 72, 73% of their hits are singles. So now it's a team that doesn't have the power that they did last year, right? So we're talking their let's see, their slugging is 22nd in majors. They're hitting 366. Their ISO, so their isolated power, right, is 26th in the majors. They are actually second to last in the American League with a 120 ISO. So there's no power. So you're looking at a team that almost 3/4 of their hits are singles. They're not barreling up the ball at all. Their barrel percentage is actually, I think, second or third worst in the majors at just over 6% now after today's game. So it's a team that's got to constantly get multiple hits in an inning before they can do any damage. And then on top of that, you have a team that doesn't walk and is one of the worst clubs at, I believe they're last in chase percentage. So they're a super aggressive team that doesn't walk, that hits a lot of singles. And so you got a team that's prone to strikeouts. And you're just seeing it with these runners in scoring position situations 5 for 16, 0 for 6. I mean, just atrocious showings. And the most disappointing thing is that it's usually the guys that you would think are the players on the team that are supposed to be the leaders. I mean, Randy Arozarena and Isak Paredes, the amount of times I felt like I had to watch them pop up into the infield this series with runners on and I believe in the Saturday game, they had bases loaded. I think it might have been that eighth inning or seventh or eighth inning when Warfet hit the homer that got called back. They eventually get the runners on. Caballero and lineup turns over. I mean, there was they walked. I mean, think about this. They intentionally walked Richie Palacios twice, right? They walked him two times so that they could face Randy Arozarena, the guy that is a 2020 threat every year, has proven to be a 2020 threat. This is literally supposed to be his team this year. Wander's not on the team anymore, or not playing right now. He is the most beloved player by all the Rays fans. He's got a section named after him, 2 sections named after him. Every Friday night home game, it's Randy Lane night, and people show up for it. People love Randy. People want him to be the guy. And this is the best opportunity he's had in his career to be the guy. And he finds himself now in a situation where the worst team in baseball, the worst team record-wise in baseball, the league's worst pitching staff, is intentionally walking a Richie Palacios, which, all due respect to Richie, he's been great this year, has nowhere near the pedigree that Randy Arozarena should have. And they're saying, we don't want to face Richie Palacios. We'd rather face Randy Arozarena and throw him fastballs down the middle to see if he can just catch up to him, because we bet he can't. And he didn't. And it worked out perfectly both times. I believe he popped out once and struck out another time. I think he may have flown out. So, and then Isak pops out. There's no run scored in that eighth inning. I mean, and then they were even lucky to get the run across in the extras in the 10th inning. They get the runner over on a wild pitch, no outs. It's actually first and third, no outs. And then it's back-to-back strikeouts. And then a wild pitch is able to get Curtis Mead in. Of course, the game doesn't go well for them with Phil Maton again rearing his head with a 2-run homer. He's been really bad to start the year, and just kind of indicative. Him and Davinsky had just really kind of been the poster child so far for the Rays bullpen woes, outside of maybe Pete Fairbanks's walks that we've seen. But he gives up the game, and then the Sunday game was just really not. I mean, that's just kind of like they're no energy. I mean, the White Sox starting pitcher obviously went, I think, 8 1/3 and pitched really well. But the Rays couldn't do anything off them, and it's just not good enough. Not good enough. So, following this series, the Rays find themselves 13 and 16. I think that you hear a lot. I've been listening to a lot of the Rays post games. There's a lot of talk about getting a lot of the season left. There's 133 games left in the season, or however many there are. It's only April. There's plenty of time. We've talked about this a lot on this podcast. It is early, right? It's not September. It's not the last few weeks of the season when the Rays are down 6 games in the division. Yes, there is a lot of the season left. I acknowledge that. But that doesn't mean that these games aren't as important as the games in September. Each game is important. Each game is the same amount of importance to the record of the team. In fact, I would argue that games like these are in some ways more important because these are the games that you can't give away. These are the games I guarantee you, if the Rays turn it around and are in contention the rest of the season, and even whether it comes down to a playoff spot, a playoff berth, a wild card berth, so they can hang another wild card banner in the rafters of of Tropicana Field, right? Or it comes down to maybe a division winner, and they come up short by a game or 2 games. This is a series you will be able to look back on and say that that shouldn't have happened. We This team could have been in a better spot, could have been in a playoff spot, as a division winner, as a wild card berth. But they screwed around and did not show up against the worst team in baseball back in April and lost all 3 games to a 3-22 team. So it's early, yes, but don't get me wrong. This was an absolute disaster of a weekend. And we can't just sweep it under the rug by saying it's early, they're going to get it turned around. What have we seen thus far this season to say that they're going to get it turned around? I would say nothing. There's been nothing other than maybe strong starting pitching at times. There's been nothing to suggest that this team is going to be able to put it together enough as currently constructed to turn it around. The stats certainly don't show it. They don't look like they're having any fun out there. They're not playing loose. Our biggest energy guy, Randy Arozarena, is just in the midst of one of the worst stretches of his career. Actually, probably, I'm sure, the worst at this point. He's getting the people in front of him intentionally walked so that they can face him instead. Jose Siri, who is supposed to be our, power speed guy out of center field, hits 25 bombs last year. He's going to steal more bases. Well, Jose can't steal bases if you're not getting on base. The man's striking out at a over 40% clip right now. I mean, he's a third, if not more, on the way to matching his strikeout total from last year. And we're not even, I mean, was it 25, 26, or it's like 29 games right now? I mean, you're talking like we're not even at like what, 1/5, 1/6 of the season? And he's already passed a third of his strikeout total from last year. This man might strike out 200 times. He is giving uncompetitive at bat after uncompetitive at bat. I mean, I literally, I don't expect him to get past 3 pitches in an at bat because he will swing at everything. And then you have him getting benched in the middle of a game for not hustling to a ball in center field. I mean, like it or not, Jose's got to be one of the leaders on this team. He's got to be the spark plug. He's got to be the guy out there giving it his effort, 100% effort. And, Cash didn't like how he approached that ball that Eloy Jimenez got to second on and benched him. I think that's great. I think more of the people on this team need a wake-up call because we know that, at least, from what we see in the public, Kevin Cash is not a manager that's going to, yell and scream and, ream this team out in public. I don't know what happens behind closed doors, but certainly all we hear about Kevin Cash is that he is the same every day, whether they're winning or losing. And I feel like you started to see a little bit of him, being more pointed in his comments after last night, after Saturday's game. But, so for him to bench Jose in the middle of a game, I think it's great. To be honest, I think more things like this need to happen. Not necessarily benchings, of course, unless they're warranted. But I think, I get it. The Rays are not going to be successful unless Randy is doing well. They need Randy. Well, Randy is not doing anything right now. Stop batting him in the top half of the order. I'd put him down at the bottom of the order. Take some pressure off. Get some guys that are hitting, some of the few guys that are hitting consistently, Palacios, Rosario. Get them in the top 3 of the lineup every night, especially against a right-handed batter. I think that guys like Rene Pinto, who are doing absolutely nothing for this team right now. Curtis Mead, he's starting to look a little better at the plate. I mean, he's starting to drive the ball a little bit more. He had that home run against the Tigers. I mean, I think it was probably the weakest home run I've ever seen in my life, but home run nonetheless. I mean, he's starting to maybe turn it around. I don't know. He's young. I get it. But, Harold Ramirez, I mean, he's hustling. That's great. But I don't know what he's offering this team right now. He is not making a difference in my mind. There's a number of guys on this roster that are not really moving the needle. I mean, up until this weekend, I would have said Austin Shenton and Nico Goodrum are literally taking up 2 spots on the roster and doing absolutely nothing. They're not serving any purpose. I think Austin Shenton bought himself more time. I think especially with Josh Lowe maybe being delayed and coming back. And Aranda's still rehabbing. I think Austin Shenton showing a little bit that he can provide some pop and actually maybe give this team a little bit of a boost offensively. But Nico Goodrum, he's versatile. He can play all over the field. Don't know what else he's doing. Not really. I don't hardly ever seeing the field at all. Jose Siri. I mean, if he doesn't pick it up, I'm not kidding. I get that he was told last year he was a starter, no question. He had a great year last year by his standards, and this, certainly was not in any position to be worried about his playing time this year coming into the season. Johnny DeLuca, after his rehab, he needs to be in center field most of the time. I don't care if he doesn't grade out as great of a defender as Siri. If it's a step down, I get it. Siri has done nothing to earn to be the starting center fielder so far this season. Cannot have him. He's killing this team offensively. Cannot have his bat in the lineup. Get DeLuca in there. And if he takes off and actually does pretty well, I think you make him the everyday center fielder moving forward. No questions asked. I don't think it's that hard a decision. I quite honestly feel like Siri, if he's got options left, he could maybe benefit from some time in AAA. I don't know. But he's offering nothing to this team right now other than maybe a couple plays in the field. But he just found himself benched for not hustling. So don't know what he's doing for the Rays right now. So there's really only a few guys that you really feel like are really carrying or pulling their weight. I mean, I think Yandy's doing okay. Like I said, he's kind of coming around a little bit. Richie Palacios, Ahmed Rosario, absolutely. They need to be getting at-bats as much as possible. Richie Palacios, I guess, lefty on lefty, probably not going to be in the lineup. To be honest with you, I'd say just keep him in there. He's been great and gives your team a lot of energy. Isaac Paredes, he's another guy I think is doing just fine. Right? He's earning his time. Ben Warfet should be the starting center or starting catcher absolutely 90% of the time. Unless there's a lefty and you want Rene Pinto's bat in there, I get it. But there's really no question that he has been the better catcher. He needs to be in the lineup. I just think things need to be there needs to be some changes. Things need to be moved around a little bit. I think these guys need a wake-up call. And as the team gets healthier, when you got guys like DeLuca and Aranda coming back, hopefully Josh Lowe coming back, that hopefully this hamstring issue doesn't pan out to be anything, major. Maybe it's just hey, just glad we caught it or whatever. And he's back by this weekend, the home series this weekend. As guys get healthier, I think, I think Nico Goodrum's out of the roster, obviously, but outside of that, I think maybe some tough decisions should be made. Some guys need to be moved around. Maybe you wouldn't have expected. Because this team needs a wake up call offensively. And quite honestly, Junior Caminero, he's down there in AAA. I get he wasn't at AAA last year. They want to get him some at bats, whatever. The man's hitting over 300. He just hit 2 bombs today. He had a 2-homer game. And I just think there's no benefit to him being in AAA at this point. What could, I mean, there's no reason to be wasting his bat in AAA right now. I get it. He plays third base. Isak plays third base. Where are they going to find the playing time for him? Isak can play second base. Harold Ramirez is a DH almost all the time. He doesn't move the needle on this team. I'm sorry, he doesn't. He's had a couple good hits, couple good stretches, couple good games in a row at times. Yes, he hustles. I mean, he's a great player, great teammate, right? But he's not a difference maker by any means. You get Caminero up to the majors. I don't care. Ideally, you want him coming up in a situation where you don't have to rely on him and say, Junior Caminero, we need you to come up and make a difference. We need you to be a difference maker for this team right off the bat. Newsflash, that's what they did with Wander. That's exactly how Wander came up. Wander came up needing to be a difference maker. The team was on a 7-game losing streak. They lost 7 in a row. I think after losing 4 in a row against the Mariners in Seattle, they lost on a walk-off grand slam in extras to Shed Long. Diego Castillo gives up a walk-off grand slam in Seattle. And what did the Rays do? They say, you know what? We need to get Wander up here. We need to change this team around. We need a spark plug. We need the energy. We need to get this offense going. And he struggled a little bit at the beginning, but that's pretty much what he did. And that team was really good from that point on. I don't see any reason why Junior Caminero can't be the same thing for this team. You're talking about a guy that's got arguably some of the best power would have some of the best power in the majors from the jump. He's an 80 grade power, according to Baseball America. I was reading an article today about, let's see, let's see. So his slash right now, he's hitting 313, 337, 646. It's his slash line right now. So, and today he had 4 hits. He had a 109.7 mile an hour homer. His second home run traveled 433 feet. Then he had a 92.4 mile an hour single, and then another double at over 101 miles an hour. And apparently it would have been a third home run had it just been a few feet over and not hitting a much higher wall. He was out for a little bit with a quad issue, but since his return, Junior Caminero had 15 of 26 batted balls qualify as hard hit, 95 mile an hour or harder. I don't see any reason why Junior Caminero can't be the same kind of spark plug for this offense. You get him in the lineup. You move Isak around to second base. Heck, he can play a little shortstop. I don't care. Jose Caballero can play second base. I don't care. You get Junior Caminero in the lineup. This is not a guy with a talent that you keep down because, Isak's hitting 7 home runs, or, Curtis Mead's playing second base. Where are we going to, Harold Ramirez is at DH. How are we going to get Junior in the lineup every day? There is no hitter in the Rays lineup like Junior Caminero right now. You get him up there and get him in the lineup and get him to be a spark plug for this team. I don't see any reason why he can't be that guy. You worry about the pressure it put on him. I mean, sure, he could come up and be like Jackson Holiday and struggle, but I'm pretty sure based on how he played in September last year, I don't think he's going to have any issue playing in the majors. He's already shown to be just fine. So Junior Caminero, I think, in my mind, needs to come up. And, the Rays could be, doing some BS about service time. I get it. Super 2, all that stuff. I don't know what they're planning with that under the guise of, they want to get him more at-bats in AAA since he wasn't there. So I don't know. I don't know when we'll see Junior. Though they could be very stubborn about it and keep him and I think they would hurt this team. I think at the expense of the Major League Ball Club, keeping him down is going to hurt this team. Um, so that needs to happen. Thankfully, much like how the White Sox came into the Rays series 3-22, but worst team in baseball, they came in and swept the Rays, doubled their win total in a weekend. As they say, that's baseball. In a similar fashion, we can look ahead to the Milwaukee series, and the Rays shown absolutely no reason why we would think that they could be competitive in this series or competitive against the Mets or certainly competitive against the Yankees next week, but or in a couple weeks. But they could come out this week and turn things around, and we might have a different tune, different story to talk about later in the week. But I think ultimately this team is certainly underperforming, and actually they're lucky to be 13-16 with their run differential and just generally how they played all year. So we'll see what happens this week. Hopefully Josh Lowe can come back this week and the hamstring issue is not anything serious. We did see, like I said, Junior have a great day at the plate today, and he's crushing the ball right now in AAA. So hopefully he can come up soon. You do have guys, some reinforcements in AAA. Your guys that we're expecting to start and get a lot of playing time. Aranda, DeLuca, these guys that are expected to be contributing. You have them coming up and playing rehab games, hopefully being back, by the beginning of May, the next week or two. Taj Bradley looking lights out. I think, having him back in the rotation is certainly going to help. I don't know how much because we have yet to see him prove it in the majors over an extended period of time, but certainly he's going to be a positive. And then, just treading water right now. But unfortunately, treading water is not good enough right now for the team, where they're at. They need to turn it around, and they're running out of time before they start really putting themselves in a hole in the division and potentially a playoff spot. So we'll see what happens. They take on the Brewers this week for 3 and then come home to play the Mets. It is a particularly exciting week because of the City Connect jersey reveal happening tomorrow, and I believe they'll be wearing them Friday night against the Mets, at least, maybe, or Saturday night. I'm not sure. So there are some positives this week that we can look forward to, and hopefully, the Rays can get some strong pitching and get some timely hitting this week against the Brewers, because certainly did not happen this weekend. And as a Rays fan, guys, I'm sorry, we're just going to have to wear it for another day or two. Any media about the Rays right now is going to be pretty embarrassing, and they deserve it. They played embarrassing baseball this week. And after getting swept by a 3-22 team, it's up to them to turn it around and to change the narrative. And that means coming out against the Brewers, which is a really good team, I believe, maybe leading the Central right now, and having to at least grab one win, hopefully get a series win and get back to the Trop for a series against the Mets and the Mets and the White Sox, excuse me. So I believe that is it for me. I have gone through kind of all my thoughts from this weekend. Appreciate you guys listening in. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Raise Rewind Sick Podcast. We are really grateful for those who have already, and appreciate y'all listening in. So go Rays, and hopefully when we see you guys again later this week, we have a little more positive things to talk about. But go Rays, and y'all have a great week.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Raise Rewind with El Bushman and Drew on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.